Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you find yourself in this moment, and welcome to this devotional time. My name is Pastor Marcy, the Associate Pastor here at the Delmar Reformed Church, and I'm here to just offer a brief devotion on the upcoming scripture text for this week. Typically, we offer a Bible study, fireside chat, if you will, and Pastor Chris and I will look and deeply dig into the scripture text with asking different questions and asking one another different questions and observations about the text. And so because we'll be entering into a summer hiatus, if you will, we figured that on Wednesdays we would still offer some way to just let the scripture sink in and let that start to percolate before we dig into it on Sunday for the sermon. If you joined us last week, we looked at Genesis 21, and this is the story of how Hagar and Ishmael were sent away, and we see that Abraham and Sarah kind of push them out into the wilderness, and God still meets them. God saves them, and Ishmael and Hagar are saved by God. And we can see that in our lives. Who are the Hagars and who are the Ishmaels in our life that we need to see, who we need to offer safe space for? And this week we look into Genesis 22, which some might say is one of the hardest scripture texts to look at. It is a text of horror, if you will, text of terror. And it's the binding of Isaac. So we hear about Hagar and Ishmael and Sarah and Abraham in Genesis 21, but there's still Isaac what's Isaac doing now? Now that Hagar and Ishmael are gone, what's his life like? And we now see a little glimpse into what his story might have looked like. And so I'm going to read through Genesis 22, verses 1 through 14, and just offer a couple of questions for us. So throughout this week, you can continue to ask yourself, what about this? And as I'm looking ahead to Sunday, what else can be listened to or observed or noticed in the scripture text? And so hear this word of the Lord as it comes to us from Genesis 22. After these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." Then he said, "Here I am." He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. He cut the wood for the burnt offering and set out and went to the place in the distance that God had shown him. Now on the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place far away. Then Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. So the 2 of them walked on together. Isaac said to his father Abraham, "Father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." He said, "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." So the 2 of them walked on together. When they came to the place that God had shown him, Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." As it is said to this day, "On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's hard for me to say thanks be to God for a text that stirs up so much visceral response and reaction within me. I think about Abraham, like, why would he do this? And more importantly, why would God ask Abraham to do something like this? It makes me really struggle to look at the cultural context and also the theological implications of this text. And so as I look ahead to this Sunday, the sermon is going to be called Failing God's Tests. And I'll hope that each of you tune in to hear more about what that means. But for right now, I want to look at this text as a way of Abraham showing his faithfulness. 3 times, Abraham says, "Here I am. Here I am." This is a heartbeat in Scripture, if you will, especially in the Old Testament. You hear prophets saying, here I am, when God is calling out to them. The Hebrew for that word is hineni, if you might say that along with me. Hineni, here I am, or here am I. And what that's really saying in the Hebrew is, I am fully present. I'm fully present to the moment. I am grounded in my current reality. And so when Abraham says that 3 times, he says it when God calls out to him, he says it when Isaac calls out to him, and then he also says it when the angel calls out to him. What do you think that looks like to be grounded in the current moment? What do you think it looks like to be grounded when you're being tested? What does it look like when you're to be grounded when a family member calls out to you or when a family member reaches out to you? What does it look like to be grounded when someone says that you need to stop what you're about to do? What does that look like for you right now? I know for me, I am feeling a whole host of things. And one of them is that I'm feeling tired, feeling that restlessness in my spirit. What does it look like for me or for you to experience true grounding in this current moment? Because when I'm feeling restless, it's so easy for me to get scattered and just think about 1,000 different things rather than what's right in front of me. And so maybe in this story, Abraham is faithful because he's connected to the current moment. He's grounded in his reality. And in that reality, we know that God is here. God was with us in our past, God will be with us in our future, and God is with us now. We don't need to produce anything, or we don't need to remember a whole bunch of things in order for God to be with us. No, God is just with us in and every single moment. And that's something that I don't believe is terrifying, that God is with me. If we were to reframe this text and say as, but Abraham is just so present to what's happening right in front of him. I wonder if that's a way that we could see Abraham's faithfulness in this text. I'm curious as to, in this text, what are you seeing? I'd love to hear your responses by emailing me at pastormarcy@drchurch.org. This text is so rich and there's so much there that I'd love to hear what you have to say. So please email me at pastormarcy@drchurch.org, or please feel free to call me at the church, 518-439-9929. And also, as this text is percolating, maybe there's something that comes up for you 3 weeks from now. I'd love to hear that, because I don't ask you to think of something that, maybe nothing's coming up for you right now, because I want you to be true to this current moment, just as Abraham was. So there's no need to force or manipulate anything. I just want to know what provides for you hineni, grounding, presence. Here I am. Friends, it's a gift to just share this with you, and I look forward to worshiping with you on Sunday at 9:30. Peace be with each of you.